Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Tales of Herding God Part 233 based on novel. So let's start. Qin Mu said with a smile, Buddha, impart your luminous sky true scripture to me and let me comprehend it first. You can study these blueprints. When the materials are here, you can start to forge the spirit energy mutual shift bridge. Sakra Buddha examined these blueprints, and his heart grew apprehensive. He took out a thin booklet, and threw it to him. This is my Sakra scripture, read it first, I shall study the blueprints. Qin Mu flipped through it, and there were only 10 or more pages. He cried out, so little. My technique is from the heart, there isn't much of great reasoning. What I seek is to treat every word like a pearl. When Sakra Buddha said until here, he took out the Buddhist scriptures that piled up like a mountain to throw them in front of Qin Mu. This is the explanation for each word in my technique. Qin Mu looked at the mountain of books and he felt giddy. He turned his head to look at this young Buddha, and Sakra Buddha also looked at the blueprints that stacked up into a wall in front of him. He also turned his head to look at him. Qin Mu probed, Buddha, if we harm each other like this, we won't be able to leave the Buddha realm alive. He took out a dozen of blueprints from the wall of blueprints and said, this is the main body of spirit energy mutual shift bridge. After you finishing constructing the main body, I can imprint the runes with you. That would be much simpler. Sakra Buddha laughed and he swept his sleeve. The mountain of books vanished, and he took out a string of prayer beads to hang around Qin Mu's neck. If you read all of these Buddhist scriptures, you will take dozens of years to comprehend them all. However, as I cultivated daily, I have made this string of prayer beads. They are refined with my wisdom. As long as you wear them around your neck, you will be able to under this Sakra scripture, without looking at these Buddhist scriptures. Qin Mu let out a sigh of relief, and they laughed out loud as they looked at each other. When Qin Mu looked at that thin booklet, every Sanskrit transformed into incomparably complicated information to flow into his brain. The information in every word was like the dragon language in the true dragon's nest. The amount of information stored was huge. Even though the technique in Sakra scripture was slightly inferior when compared to Ancestral Dragon's supreme mystery technique, it was still extraordinary, and was an extremely powerful technique. This kind of technique had extraordinary points in tempering the primordial spirit and raising wisdom. And the techniques for corporeal body battles were even more outstanding. Ancestral Dragon's supreme mystery technique was a technique on Emperor's throne and Sakra scripture was a luminous sky technique. But because Ancestral Dragon's supreme mystery technique was a technique for the dragon race, it didn't have much use to Qin Mu. However, the effect of Sakra scripture was extraordinary. The most crucial point was that this technique was exactly like how Sakra Buddha had said. It was easy to learn, bold, powerful and doing half the work and achieving twice the effect. The rise in his cultivation was very fast. Qin Mu comprehended it, and his wisdom beads swelled continuously. Soon, he learned the outline of the technique, and he immediately executed it. Gradually, a wheel of light gradually appeared behind his head and slowly swirled. He immediately felt all kinds of Dharma runes being imprinted in his corporeal body, in his bones, in his divine treasures, in his primordial spirit, and all of these improved his corporeal body and primordial spirit continuously. Furthermore, when combining this technique with 8 voices of Ancestral Dragon, it could raise his corporeal body and primordial spirit even faster and even stronger. The even more marvelous point was that he could clearly feel his every thought, and those distracting thoughts seemed to have become small beads that flowed continuously in his mind. This made him able to clearly judge between good and bad. If I cultivate like this, I can probably become Buddha in a few dozen years. However, I don't want to be a monk. I can only take reference from the useful points from Sakra scripture, and incorporate them into my Overlord Body 3 elixir technique. Qin Mu thought to himself. After half a day, numerous Buddhist countries in Sakra heaven had sent over the materials needed for spirit energy mutual shift bridge. Sakra Buddha stretched out his hand to wave and numerous jade rocks flew into the sky. They smoothed themselves out in mid-air, and the jade stacked on one another to quickly construct a large-scale altar. Sakra Buddha quickly forged the other components into their shapes, and formed the main body of spirit energy mutual shift bridge. Qin Mu was currently researching how to incorporate Sakra scripture into his Overlord Body 3 elixir technique, when he saw this sight unintentionally. His body trembled slightly as he looked at Sakra Buddha forging in a daze. His forging methods have numerous similarities with Grandpa Mute's forging methods, but he naturally couldn't have got into contact with Grandpa Mute. In that case, what is Sakra Buddha's origin? Could he be a person of founding emperor era? Qin Mu was in a daze. Sakra Buddha quickly forged the main body, and he stretched his hands out. The jade of the sacrificial altar expanded outwards, as they separated from one another. Meanwhile, the main body of spirit energy mutual shift bridge moved into the center of the sacrificial altar. The jade closed back and from the outside, it looked like a sacrificial altar. The things inside couldn't be seen. Sakra Buddha finished the construction of the main body, and he turned his head back to take a look, only to see Qin Mu looking at him. He couldn't help smiling. "What are you looking at me for?" "Nothing much." Qin Mu shook his head, and went forward to help him imprint the runes. He asked mindlessly, "What's Buddha's surname in the past?" Sakra Buddha stopped what he was doing and was silent for a moment. After a while, he smiled. "I've forgotten." Qin Mu saw him smiling unnaturally. His smile seemed to bring a hint of bitterness, so he didn't probe any further. Everyone has their own secrets, and they were not obligated to reveal everything about themselves. No matter what Sakra Buddha's surname was in the mortal world, he was not a bad person. He had the title of Buddha, and he was still warm-hearted. To save the Buddha realm, he was willing to be scolded and willing to take all the shit on himself. Even though such a person wasn't willing to talk about his past, he still gave others a reliable feeling. The two of them got busy and spent half a day to finally complete spirit energy mutual shift bridge. Qin Mu checked in detail and didn't find any mistakes in the bridge. There are still quite a number of divine metals that aren't used up, little friend Qin. The list you gave me seems to be wrong. Sakra Buddha looked at the divine mountain that had piled up beside the altar like a mountain. These divine metals were called Buddha Vitality Crimson Chromium, and there was also some wood that was from Plume Buddha Mother Tree. He had let all the Buddhist countries of Sakra heaven offer up their materials according to the list, and after the altar was completed, there were still quite a number of materials left. In the list that Qin Mu had given him, these two materials weren't touched at all. Sakra Buddha looked at Qin Mu suspiciously and probed, "What do we do with these materials?" Qin Mu opened the Daotai sack in a hurry and said, "We are escaping for our lives, we might be able to use them in the future. Put them into my Daotai sack first." Sakra Buddha stared at him. Qin Mu maintained a straight face, while storing the Buddha Vitality Crimson Chromium and Plume Buddha Mother Tree into his Daotai sack. Qin Mu then took out another Daotai sack, and stored the rest of the materials before carefully tying the sack around his waist. These two sacks bulged out and seemed to be fully packed. Sakra Buddha sneered. "Little friend Qin, the leftover materials precisely filled up these two sacks of yours. It's like it was pre-calculated. There's such a thing." Qin Mu was astonished and cried out, "I wouldn't have noticed if you hadn't said that. They really filled up my sacks precisely. How strange, how strange. The 20 heavens of Buddha realms is truly extraordinary. This must be the spirit of Buddha realm who knows I'm carrying the blame for Buddha realm, so it is giving back to me. Excellent, excellent." This makes me want to believe in Buddhism too. Sakra Buddha kept staring at him until he couldn't make up any more excuses. Only then did he chuckle and said, "Clear-minded people know with just one look. There's no need for little friend Qin to explain anymore. I shall plant my divine art before activating the spirit energy mutual shift bridge. You shall calibrate it and connect it with Supreme Emperor Heaven." Qin Mu's face blushed and he acknowledged. He came to the top of the altar and pressed his hands on the flat surface in the center. With a hum, the flat surface became numerous fine cubes, and those cubes reconstructed continuously to form a sphere. On the sphere, runes kept flowing and jumping around. Opening up his hands, the sphere expanded as small cubes separated from each other. Between the cubes, flowing light formed from the runes connected different cubes together. He took out his calculation spirit weapon, and made some calculations to calibrate the position of Supreme Emperor Heaven. Light gradually gathered in the center of the sphere and transformed into a small dot in the center. Once Qin Mu confirmed the location of Supreme Emperor Heaven, he closed his hands together again. The sphere shrank and transformed back into a flat surface, which was pressed back down into the sacrificial altar. Sakra Buddha had already laid out his divine art, and he came to the peak of the altar. This young-looking Buddha looked over Sakra Heaven. He seemed slightly reluctant to leave. "Buddha, the longer we drag this out, the greater danger we will be in," Qin Mu reminded him. Sakra Buddha nodded his head gently, the gloom on his face dispersing. He smiled brightly and said, "When my shit is washed off, I will be able to return back to this place. I'll become Buddha once again, so why am I acting wishy-washy? Little friend Qin, let us go." Qin Mu's vital qi poured out, and entered the activation rune of the altar. Light instantly flowed and runes were lighted up one by one. The entire sacrificial altar was like a huge beast that was awakening as the stars swirled and transformed continuously. At last, Spirit Energy Mutual Shift Bridge was finally activated and a beam of light rushed into the sky to reach beyond the heavens. We can't feel the passage of time through the journey, but I have calculated before. From Supreme Emperor Heaven to Great Ruins, it requires a quarter of an hour. Qin Mu and Sakra Buddha walked side by side into the beam of light. Qin Mu raised his voice. From Buddha realm to Supreme Emperor Heaven, it might take slightly longer. An entire day and night have 96 quarters of an hour, so the time that Spirit Energy Mutual Bridge is destroyed needs to be after we have been teleported to Supreme Emperor Heaven. Does the quarters of an hour Buddha use similar to that of Great Ruins? It is. Sakra Buddha replied loudly, "My divine art will explode after 3/4 of an hour and destroy the Spirit Energy Mutual Shift Bridge." The two of them vanished in the flowing light. At this moment, in Brahma Heaven, Yudu devil chi surged around. This place had already become a devil sea. The devil nature and devil chi of Yudu invaded, and Yudu life forms could gradually be seen swimming over. In the pitch-black sea, they would show their long bodies and black-colored scales from time to time. Suddenly, the devil sea churned and swirled. A huge whirlpool appeared in the sea and a pair of huge pitch-black horns slowly rose from it. The crashing sounds of the waves became louder and louder. Right at this moment, from the island in the center of Brahma Heaven, a reclining Buddha slowly rose from the dilapidated monastery and shone brightly. The reclining Buddha laid in the lotus, which was inconceivably huge. He was above the dilapidated monastery, and the monastery seemed to have been transformed into a golden spring that was full of lotus leaves and swaying lotus flowers. That reclining Buddha woke up and raised his head to take a look at the black-colored god that was rising from the devil sea. The god had horns of a bull, eyes of a tiger, body of a bull, and a third eye in the heart of his brows. "Tao brother." Brahma Buddha hurriedly greeted him. "The things that happened in my Brahma Heaven have actually alarmed Tao brother, and made Tao brother descend with your clone." I'm truly overwhelmed with fear. That god with horns of a bull and head of a tiger was none other than Earth Count. He looked around and his voice reverberated. Brahma Buddha, your heaven has become Yudu. Getting rid of the Yudu devil Qi isn't difficult, so why haven't you gotten rid of it? Do you need my help? Brahma Buddha smiled and said, I don't dare to trouble Tao brother. Also, the Yudu in my heaven is evidence that I need to keep to prevent the celestial heavens from pinning the blame on me. Furthermore, if Buddha realm only has light and no darkness, it's difficult to take another step forward. Only with darkness can Dharma continue to develop. This piece of Yudu, let it remain here. I see. Earth Count heard his words, and immediately understood the cause and effect. I wasn't strict with my discipline, and let son of Yudu come and create trouble here. Pardon me. I don't dare to. As the two existences conversed, the sky suddenly shone brightly, and an ancient flying ship came sailing through the sky. That ship was flowing with multicolored light, and it actually had pairs of wings that were symmetrical on the left and the right. Meanwhile, the bow of the ship wasn't the usual heads of dragons, or heads of Bashya. It was the head of a phoenix. The flying ship was extremely eye-catching, as it sailed in the sky above Brahma heaven. It gradually stopped. There were numerous golden gods standing on the bow of the ship, and they were cladded in armor. Even when they saw Earth Count and Brahma Buddha, they didn't say a word and didn't greet them. So, it's great deity of Yudu and Brahma Buddha, these two Tao brothers. A voice without any mortal air came from the ship. A woman, whose face couldn't be seen clearly and with 4 wheels of light behind her back, walked out from the flying ship. Wearing incomparably majestic luxurious clothes, she looked at Brahma Buddha and Earth Count as equals, and greeted, Xiaoyu meets Tao brother Old Buddha, and Tao brother Earth Count. Brahma Buddha greeted her and Earth Count also slightly bowed. So, it's red deity of the southern heaven, senior sister Qi. Brahma Buddha hurriedly said, never would I expect the 20 heavens of my tiny Buddha realm to actually alarm senior sister Qi. Little Buddha is truly overwhelmed with fear. Old Buddha is polite. That woman, red deity Qi Xiaoyu said, the heavens of the south are under my jurisdiction, so I can hardly move around. The reason why I've come today was because the Buddha realm is in trouble. I have received news just the other day that there's chaos in Buddha realm. May I ask if old Buddha knows about the details? Brahma Buddha said, I am currently talking to Earth Count about this. I had neglected discipline, and wicked thoughts were suddenly born in junior brother Sakra's heart. He released son of Yudu, and he killed quite a number of Buddhas and sons of Buddhas. He even turned my Brahma realm into Yudu. Tao brother Earth Count is here, senior sister Qi can ask him. Qi Xiaoyu looked at Earth Count. Earth Count nodded his head. That's indeed the case. The one that had killed people was the son of my Yudu. I had sealed the son of Yudu, and he wouldn't have been able to escape without great magic power. It must be someone with great magic power, who had released him. Red deity Qi Xiaoyu gave a smile and said, so I see, Sakra is originally not someone that knows his place. After he joined Buddhism, I thought he might behave himself here with old Buddha, and be completely indifferent to worldly temptations. Never did I expect him to still rebel. Old Buddha has also suffered, so I can't blame you or Yudu. Only Sakra is to be blamed. Since the matter is clarified, I shall be going to Sakra heaven to seize him and escort him to God execution stage to be served as a warning. Pardon me and farewell. Brahma Buddha said at once, senior sister, please. The flying ship suddenly flapped its wings and vanished from Brahma realm. Brahma Buddha raised his eyebrows and didn't say a word. Earth Count's huge body gradually sank into the Devil Sea and vanished. Meanwhile, in Sakra heaven, the flying ship suddenly appeared. When Qi Xiaoyu looked at the sky, her face changed slightly. She rose into the sky from the ship, and passed through the multicolored light to sprint towards the Spirit Energy Mutual Shift Bridge. Escaped. However, you can't run. Just as she was about to enter Spirit Energy Mutual Shift Bridge, the bridge suddenly trembled violently. The divine art left behind by Sakra Buddha exploded. The mountain-like altar instantly warped and crumbled inwards towards the center. Thinking of leaving, Red deity Qi Xiaoyu suddenly transformed into a 9-headed rainbow phoenix, and chased after the light that was about to vanish in the sky. She tried to catch up to the light of the bridge that was vanishing. Swoosh! Her figure vanished in the light, but was bounced out by the space in the next instant. The light vanished completely. Come, ship! She gave a soft shout and the ship with wings came flying. Qi Xiaoyu landed on the ship and sat down. She took out a phoenix zither and placed it horizontally on her knees. Little thief had escaped during founding emperor era. I'm not going to let you run today. After saying that, she stroked her zither and played a tune. The cadence of the zither transformed into physical substance before vanishing. Qi Xiaoyu played a tune before rising up while saying, "He won't be able to escape my life-seeking zither notes. If he can, he is worthy of my admiration." The journey from Buddha realm to Supreme Emperor Heaven was even further than what Qin Mu had calculated. Even though they couldn't feel the passage of time through Spirit Energy Mutual Shift Bridge, they could still feel the sudden tremors from the flowing light of the Spirit Energy Mutual Shift Bridge. This made both of them had a bad feeling. This meant that they had already stayed past 3/4 of an hour in the bridge. The divine art that Sakra Buddha planted had erupted and destroyed the bridge. This also meant that before they even reached Supreme Emperor Heaven, Spirit Energy Mutual Shift Bridge had already been destroyed. Qin Mu had never encountered this kind of situation before, and he was instantly out of ideas. What would happen if the Spirit Energy Mutual Shift Bridge is destroyed ahead of time? In the flowing light, Sakra Buddha asked Qin Mu loudly. Qin Mu also raised his voice. We will know very soon. Sakra Buddha instantly understood what he meant and couldn't help changing his expression. The flowing light of the Spirit Energy Mutual Shift started to tremble violently. It was the result of the mutually shifting energy that was beginning to collide with each other. Spirit Energy Mutual Shift Bridge established access between the Buddha realm and Supreme Emperor Heaven. When Qin Mu and Sakra Buddha headed towards Supreme Emperor Heaven, there should also be a portion of energy from Supreme Emperor Heaven that must go towards the Buddha realm in order to balance out the energy. The energy that was shifting over had to be equal to the energy that was contained in Qin Mu and Sakra Buddha. Meanwhile, in the Buddha realm, the Spirit Energy Mutual Shift Bridge was destroyed prematurely. As a consequence, the flowing light of the bridge collided with the energy that was shifting, resulting in violent tremors. In front of their eyes, the energy flashed with all kinds of colors, as though they had entered a kaleidoscopic world and they were flowing quickly inside. The collision of the energy caused Qin Mu's corporeal body to feel waves of stinging pain. These kinds of colors were elongated like fine strips of light. They formed a flood with 10,000 kinds of colors. Will they wipe each other out? Sakra Buddha muttered as his heart thumped. In the multicolored flowing light, Qin Mu took out his calculation spirit weapons and started calculating. He shook his head and said, "They won't be wiped out." Supreme Emperor Heaven and the Buddha realm had both lost a portion of energy, so they will still bring us towards the targeted world. This is the only way to maintain the energy balance of both worlds, otherwise, they will bring tremors to both worlds. The energy of Supreme Emperor Heaven is precisely on the same path as us, and we had collided into it perfectly. This kind of energy collision cannot be defended against with divine art. If divine art is used against this energy, our momentum and the momentum of this lump of energy that's heading toward the Buddha realm will both be cancelled out. What happens if they cancelled out? Sakra Buddha asked. In that case, we will be forever stuck here between the two worlds with this lump of energy. Qin Mu added, we can't advance and we can't retreat. Sakra Buddha asked bewilderedly, who taught you algebra techniques? Your abilities aren't bad. Qin Mu got struck by the energy. His corporeal body was becoming more and more painful. He endured the pain and said, I had learned computation canon of supreme mystery and computation canon of native woman. No wonder. The stubborn mules of Tao sect are all remarkable people, and they all have their noses stuck high up in the air. They usually think nothing of our Buddhism. They think we are learning of the heart, and follow everything in our heart. They think their Tao sect is the one that controls the true and great Tao of the universe. Sakra Buddha said with a smile, however, their algebra is truly profound. I have met a few of the experts of Tao sect in my early years, and they aren't any weaker than me. While they were talking, the collision of the energy was becoming fiercer and fiercer. Qin Mu couldn't endure it any longer, his corporeal body could break apart any time. Gentle Buddha rays shone around Sakra Buddha's body, and helped him block a portion of the collision. It's actually the best time to cultivate my technique now. He didn't completely protect Qin Mu. He allowed a portion of energy to hit Qin Mu's body, nearly tearing his skin apart. Qin Mu heard his words and his heart stirred. He immediately tried out Sakra scripture. He wore the wisdom beads around his neck and executed this technique. Faintly discernible Buddha rays instantly appeared behind his head and swayed gently. All kinds of Buddha voices transformed into strange runes and fused with his corporeal body and primordial spirit. They even strengthened his divine treasures, making them more and more stable. Sakra Buddha looked at Qin Mu and gave a gratified look. He thought to himself, this fellow's intentions are bad, but his comprehension isn't bad. He quickly mastered how to cultivate my technique. He could see that Qin Mu's corporeal body was obviously improving. His primordial spirit and divine treasures were also becoming stronger and stronger. This meant Qin Mu had quite the Buddha nature. If he wants a son of Qin, I would like to take him in as my disciple. He had never taken in a disciple before. When he saw Qin Mu's comprehension and aptitude, he couldn't help appreciating a talent. Suddenly, Sakra Buddha's expression turned black, as he immediately threw the appreciation to the back of his head. Qin Mu was currently changing his Sakra scripture and modifying his technique. How could a teacher appreciate such a disciple that destroys the work of the teacher by changing the technique the minute he learned it? The Buddha rays behind Qin Mu's head gradually changed. They were like incomparably tiny Buddhas that were roaming in a wheel of light. The Buddha voice also had sounds of a roaring dragon. Not long later, Sakra scripture was changed messily by Qin Mu. It couldn't be seen that it was the technique of Buddhism. What made Sakra Buddha even angrier was that his technique was becoming less and less recognizable. With the passage of time, his technique was becoming less and less significant on Qin Mu's body. In the end, his technique had actually become a small part of Qin Mu's technique. Luckily, I didn't take him in as my disciple. If he was, I would have been unable to hold myself back from smacking him to death. Sakra Buddha let out a shaky breath, as he thought to himself. This kind of energy came crashing wave after wave. When it came to the back, the impact of the energy was so large that even Sakra Buddha was finding it slightly hard to withstand. The collision of the energy couldn't be defended against using divine art. If the energy of spirit energy mutual shift bridge stopped flowing, they also couldn't enter Supreme Emperor Heaven. He could only withstand it with his corporeal body, thus he was quite at a disadvantage. The final collision had even caused Sakra Buddha's corporeal body to split apart. His skin cracked continuously, as though they were being burned into ashes. They were erased and new skin would quickly grow out straight afterward. It was obvious that his corporeal body had been cultivated to an inconceivable extent. Even so, he still tried his best to protect Qin Mu and not let him be damaged in the violent waves of energy. At the same time, he even let a portion of energy pass through to hit Qin Mu's body, giving Qin Mu pressure and forcing him to grow under pressure. Finally, the last wave was over and Sakra Buddha let out a sigh of relief. He stopped protecting Qin Mu. Right at this moment, faintly discernible sounds of a zither came over and Sakra Buddha's expression changed slightly. He hurriedly turned back to take a look and saw that the energy that had passed suddenly split apart, splitting up into countless fine and thin surfaces. The sounds of the zither gradually became clear, and the space was trembling continuously. The energy that was shifting mutually gave off all kinds of colors, becoming tiered in order. The energy trembled continuously, and seemed to transform into leaping notes. Those thin spaces that were leaping about transformed into a 9-headed phoenix, which was becoming further and further away from them. Next, the 9-headed phoenix had suddenly undergone nirvana and transformed into a blazing fire, erasing that energy that was in the space. Red deity of the southern heaven Qi Xiaoyu. Sakra Buddha's expression changed drastically and he cried out, "The one chasing us is this ruthless woman. We are done for." Without explanation, he swept Qin Mu up and hurriedly escaped forward. Qin Mu woke up from his cultivation and he immediately said, "Buddha, don't fly off by yourself, we will stray from the path to Supreme Emperor Heaven." Sakra Buddha shouted, "The divine art of a strong practitioner on Emperor's throne is right behind us. It's going to catch up pretty soon and if we don't run, we are going to die miserably." Strong practitioner on Emperor's throne. Qin Mu jumped in shock, his head turning blank. The person chasing after me is so powerful. I'm just a small figure that's on 7 stars realm. Is there a need for such a strong person? She's not coming for you, she's coming for me. Sakra Buddha gritted his teeth, and his Buddha rays swept Qin Mu up, and brought him to sprint forward with all his strength. His body literally transformed into a trail of Buddha ray that flew away quickly. I had a grudge with this woman during founding Emperor era. She must have heard that I had created trouble, so she took the initiative to find me and take revenge. The sounds of the zither came from the back, and this was the vacuum zone between Supreme Emperor Heaven and Buddha realm. No sound could travel through vacuum, yet Red Deity Qi Xiaoyu's divine art was traveling by slicing through space. The speed was extremely fast, so fast that it was inconceivable. Qin Mu turned back to take a look, and he saw the space behind them transforming and moving up and down. The space would split apart from time to time, overlap each other from time to time, and even become shapes of pillars from time to time. The length of the pillars transformed from space would also change their heights without stopping. The space would also transform into circles, with the big circles over the small circles, and the small circles being born from the void. The small circles would then expand and surpass the big circles, causing the ripples of space to transform continuously and repeating the cycle. This kind of sound divine art had surpassed Qin Mu's imagination and made him dumbfounded. He already couldn't understand Qi Xiaoyu's sound divine art, and it was truly hard to estimate how powerful the divine art of a strong practitioner on Emperor's throne was. However, from how Sakra Buddha looked when he was escaping, this kind of divine art was probably not something he could defend against. If he got caught up by this divine art, death was inevitable. "Buddha, you have already strayed from the path of Supreme Emperor Heaven." Qin Mu calculated in his heart and he frowned. "Our lives are more important," Sakra Buddha shouted. Qin Mu spoke no more and let Sakra Buddha bring him along. He couldn't help worrying in his heart. Buddha has already strayed from the path. If we continue running, we will only be further and further away from Supreme Emperor Heaven. Can we still return back to Supreme Emperor Heaven and Great Ruins? The sounds of the zither became clearer and clearer. Qin Mu immediately saw Sakra Buddha's sprinting figure suddenly got elongated, and he couldn't help jump in shock. He didn't feel any danger. Qi Xiaoyu's divine art couldn't make him feel any murderous intent, yet this divine art had already come close to them. Be careful! Sakra Buddha roared loudly, and he suddenly turned to sprint furiously backward. His Buddha rays shone brightly, and he struck out numerous divine arts to face the zither notes coming out from the depths of space. Boom! Qin Mu closed his eyes. In this instant, all kinds of dazzling lights came piercing over and stung his eyes until tears flowed out uncontrollably. This woman is so strong. Sakra Buddha's voice sounded out beside his ears, and Qin Mu could feel blood flowing on his neck. He was startled. Sakra Buddha had actually spewed vulgarities. Such a refined man actually couldn't resist saying vulgar words, so that meant that his injuries weren't light. Right at this moment, a series of collisions rang out. Qin Mu opened his eyes and he still couldn't see anything. He could only feel that he was being carried away by Sakra Buddha, and that they were tumbling. They crashed into something and kept tumbling for quite some distance before finally coming to a stop. Qin Mu sneakily opened up the golden willow leaf and looked around. He was slightly stunned. This place is... Behind him, Sakra Buddha, who had always been protecting him, collapsed on his back. His breath was faint and he said with a hoarse voice, "The second heaven of founding Emperor Celestial Heavens. This pile of shit is much smellier than I had imagined." Worg. He vomited a huge mouthful of blood. This video will end here.